Renowned as the human guinea pig, A.J. Jacobs has outsourced his life to India, read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica in a quest to become the smartest person in the world, lived modern life as the ultimate biblical man, and followed every bit of modern medical advice in a quest to become the healthiest man alive. Throwing himself into bizarre situations, all in the name of curiosity and humor, Jacobs chronicles his experience in his New York Times bestsellers, The Year of Living Biblically, and The Know-It-All, and in his latest, Drop Dead Healthy. Jacobs is the editor-at-large at Esquire magazine. He has written for the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, and New York Magazine, but it has been his unique life experiences that have greatly defined his work. He has walked in the shoes of Moses, consumed 33,000 pages of knowledge, and followed to the caveman diet to an even crazier extent than all you quantified selfers. He is going to talk to us about creating a global family tree.
You got a little preview there.
Yeah, I got a little preview there. So,
all right, that was the trailer.
Hey, did you mean to have this on auto rotate?
I did not.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe we should open it in a different program and see if it continues to do that.
Very good. Well, while you do that, I will just start. Thank you, Misha. Before I talk about my current project, which is about DNA and genealogy, I thought I'd very quickly talk about how I came to this project. As a writer, I like to dive in and immerse myself. I'm a self-explorer, like many of you. And a few years ago, I was very interested in learning about religion, because I grew up with no religion at all. As I say in the book I wrote about it, I'm Jewish, but I'm Jewish in the same way the Olive Garden is Italian. So not fair. No offense to the Olive Garden.
We're going to have to take a pause because we have a pinwheel here, and we have a presentation on auto rotate. So we'll just have to take a deep breath so you can.
Well, I've got a couple of things before,
okay,
so I think we're okay. But anyway, I learned. I thought one way to learn about religion would be to dive in and immerse myself in it. And so I bought a stack of Bibles, and I wrote down every rule that I could find in the Bible. And as you might know, this turned out to be a very long list. This was hundreds of rules, and I wanted to follow all of them without picking and choosing to see how it would affect my life, what parts would improve my life, what parts would not improve my life at all. So I decided to follow the famous ones like love your neighbor, the 10 Commandments, and be fruitful and multiply. And I was, by the way, I had twin boys during the year, so I take my projects very seriously. And you might have seen the picture earlier. Those were my twin boys. The Bible also, I wanted to follow the weirder ones as well, because there are hundreds that people ignore. You know, the Bible says that you cannot shave the corners of your beard. I didn't know where the corners were, so I just let the whole thing grow. And by the end, I had this topiary on my chin. I looked a little bit like George Church, actually. A little more extreme. His is more Darwinian. I think mine was more Mosaic. But it was the strangest year of my life, but it was also fascinating. I loved it, and it was a great way to learn about both the good and the bad in religion. After that, after the spirit, I decided to try out the body. I was in terrible shape. There, we'll just go through these. Oh, there's that rotating rainbow circle. I decided to try to do a project about my body, and because I was in terrible shape. I was skinny fat, if you know that term. I looked like a snake that had swallowed a goat. So I spent 2 years trying out all the medical advice that I could find, every diet, every exercise regimen. I did genetic testing, of course. I wrote the book while walking on a treadmill, the treadmill desk that you might have heard of. I'm a big fan. I did a lot of chewing. There's this one group that is very passionate about chewing. They think that's the key to health. It's called Chewdeism is the name of the movement. I didn't make that up, so please don't blame me. So I loved that experiment too. I learned a lot, and I still write on my treadmill desk. So I was looking for my next project. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, there I am in my biblical, and there I am. this actually was not, I didn't look like this all the time. The sheep was a rental sheep, for instance. But I did have that, I did sometimes wear the robe. And there I am. This is one of the workouts I tried, the caveman workout for people who believe in the whole paleo lifestyle. You know, you crawl on the floor of the park and so on. Anyway, back to this new. I was looking for a new project, and I got an email about 6 months ago from a man in Israel, and he said that he had read some of my books, and he said, "You don't know me, but I'm your 12th cousin." And he said, "I have a family tree with 80,000 people on it, including you, Karl Marx, and several European aristocrats." And I didn't know what to make of it. You know, part of me thought, when's he going to ask me to wire $10,000 to his Nigerian bank account? And part of me thought, you know, do I really want 80,000 relatives? You know, I have enough trouble with some of the ones I've got. And I won't name names, but they know who they are. But part of me thought, this is amazing. You know, I'm alone in my office, but I'm not. I'm connected to 80,000 other people around the world. And that's enough to fill Madison Square Garden 4 times over. And it inspired me to dive into this world of genealogy. And it turns out that this field, which I always thought was very staid and dusty, is going through a fascinating revolution, as many of you know. And partly this is because of people like you and genetic testing and DNA, which I'll get to in a moment. Part of it is because of the internet. You've got these websites now that take the Wikipedia model and they apply it to family trees. So it's all about crowdsourcing and collaboration. So sites like Genie and Wikitree. And the way it works is you upload your family tree onto these sites, and then these sites have an algorithm that searches to see if, say, the A.J. Jacobs in your family tree is the same as the A.J. Jacobs in another family tree. And if it is, then you can merge trees, you can combine. And you can just combine and combine and combine until you get these mega monster family trees with thousands of branches, or even millions. I'm on something called the World Family Tree on Genie, which has a jaw-dropping 75 million people, all of them related by blood or marriage, sometimes both. This is 160 countries, all 7 continents, including Antarctica. I'm on this tree. Many of you are on this tree, whether you know it or not. I didn't even know I was on it until I started. It includes you might have seen a little picture. My cousin Gwyneth Paltrow is on it. She has no idea I exist, but we are officially related, 17 steps away. So if she ever hears about this, she's welcome to come and have some vegan tacos with me. There's President Barack Obama, is my aunt's 5th grade aunt's husband's father's wife, 7th grade nephew. So he's practically my older brother. And then there's Kevin Bacon, who is my first cousin, twice removed, wife's niece's husband's first cousin, once removed, husband's niece's husband. So 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon right there, plus or minus a few degrees. And I'm not boasting. You know, we all have these famous relatives because the point is we're all related. And by the way, 75 million is just the start. In a decade or so, it's quite likely that we'll have a super tree that connects almost all 7 billion members of the human family, which is just extraordinary to me. It's, you know, the idea of a human family. It's not a cliche anymore. And so I've decided I'm going to help create this world family tree and write a book about it. And part of it will be the internet, and part of it will be the genetic testing. I'm part of the Personal Genome Project. I am 48303. I am, and George Church has kindly agreed to be one of my advisors. And I hope to find hundreds of cousins through the PGP and merge them with the online trees. So this new genealogy, I find it fascinating. It's also, you should know, controversial, because some traditional genealogists have very grave concerns about it. They think that, and some are so angry about it, they sabotage the online trees and delete profiles. It's very reminiscent of the battle between Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica. So the biggest concern is accuracy. How accurate are these mega trees? And the answer is, it depends. Sometimes, some branches, very accurate. They got lots of documentation, birth certificates and marriage certificates. Some very sparsely documented. You know, on one tree, I can trace all the way back to King David from biblical times. And that I find requires some leaps of faith that I'm not willing to make. But I'm actually optimistic about the accuracy issue. First of all, you've got hundreds of people working on a jigsaw puzzle instead of just one. So you've got more and more documentation every day. You've also got the genetics. So the more that people test, and Wikitree and Genie both can incorporate genetics, and so you can find where the mistakes are and where it's not a direct line. And it's also not a free-for-all. There are these police, this group, they call them forest rangers, who go around trying to make sure that all the merges are kosher. So there's also, skeptics bring up the privacy issue, and you know, I, as many of you, don't have a huge issue with privacy. Many do. My mother, for instance, is very uncomfortable with having her tree out there, semi-public. I understand the concern. It's going to continue to be a flashpoint. I don't have all the answers. There's also skeptics who say that, you know, this is cool, it's a neat trick, but what does it matter? Why is it important to have this one family tree? And I'll give you 4 very quick reasons. The first is scientific, and the world family tree is going to be an unprecedented history of the human race, and it's going to provide incredibly valuable data on disease inheritance and on human migration, and it's already started. There's a team of scientists at MIT, led by Yaniv Ehrlich, and he's been taking the world family tree. He actually took a portion of it. The world family tree is 75 million. A portion is 13 million that is all blood related. So that's a section that's all blood related of 13 million people. And he's been able to crunch the numbers and come up with some fascinating statistics and insights about disease and trait inheritance, which he has not yet revealed yet. He is, the paper is embargoed until June. So next month we'll know a lot more. I think it's in Nature. Second, this world family tree, it brings history alive in a way I've never seen before. So like with Albert Einstein, you know, I am distantly related to Albert Einstein. He's 17 links away, and I told my 7-year-old son that he's related to Albert Einstein. So now Albert Einstein's not some dead old white guy with weird hair. You know, he's Uncle Albert. And and now my kid is engaged. He wants to know what did Albert Einstein say. You know, it's not all Einsteins and Lincolns. I was not happy to find out that I am a 14th cousin with Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer. Though I will say that connection is through my wife's side. So no offense to my wife, but I'm scared of her. So it shows how enmeshed we are in history. Number 3 is interconnectedness. The tree shows the astounding interconnectedness of humans alive today. You know, we all do descend from the same ancestors, and you don't have to believe in the literal version of Adam and Eve. I sure don't, but scientists like you talk about mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam. These are the 2 humans from whom we all descend. They lived about 100,000 to 300,000 years ago, and we all have a bit of their DNA. So if you they are our great, 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 and repeated about 5,000 times grandparents, maybe 8,000. I don't know, George Church can tell me better. Which means, of course, we're all literally cousins. And estimates vary how closely the most distant cousin on Earth is blood related to you. I've heard estimates from 30 to 50th cousin. So I'm hoping that with this interconnectedness and through the PGP, I'm going to be able to find a lot of these distant cousins and add them to the tree. Number 4 is that the world family tree might just make us kinder people. Now, this is a little quixotic, I know, and I know that families feud all the time. I have 3 sons. I see how they wrestle. But I think that we do have a cognitive bias, a human cognitive bias, to treat people who are family better than we treat strangers, even if they're really distant. And I've seen this in action. I'll give you one very trivial example. Do you know the woman, the TV personality Judge Judy? She's the one, she's got a show where people come on with a dispute, she yells at them, and then I always found her incredibly abrasive. But it turns out that Judge Judy is my 11th cousin, 4 times removed. And when I found that out, I'm like, you know what? Maybe she's not so bad. Maybe you know, she has some redeeming qualities. So, and I've heard this same thing happening to my fellow tree builders. So one hope, and as I say, it's a little quixotic, is that these trees will be bad news for bigots, because you know the racists are going to have to deal with the fact that they have thousands of cousins in whatever ethnic group they happen to hate. And so they're not going to be singing Kumbaya together, but it might nudge them a little bit towards tolerance. Because if you look at history, a lot of the terrible things we've done to each other, like genocide and slavery, is because we thought another group was not human, they were subhuman. And now we can't do that. You know, not only are they human, they share 99% of our DNA, and they're part of our family. And I also think it will have a democratizing influence, because over the years there's sort of an elitist strain to some genealogy, like, oh, I'm descended from Mary Queen of Scots, and you're not, so you can't join my golf club. You know, that is not going to be, I'm descended from Mary Queen of Scots. You know, and my grandfather was born in the shtetl. So it sort of evens the playing field. As I mentioned, I'm also incorporating a lot of DNA testing. I am a PGP volunteer. My results have not come back yet, still waiting, but in the meantime, I've engaged the services of all of these consumer places like 23andMe and Family Tree DNA, and as you might know, when you send them off, they send you back a list of cousins, people who share enough DNA with you to qualify as cousins, to show that it's above random sampling of shared DNA. So I found some fascinating cousins through that, including, this was exciting, my wife. My wife is my distant cousin. So I thought that was interesting. She did not think it was funny. And we heard all the jokes, you know, and no, our kids do not have extra limbs. They're fine. But you know what? We're not the exceptions. And you go back far enough, we're all married to our cousins. So knowing I had 75 million cousins, I thought, what can I do with this information? And I decided, you know what? I'm going to throw a party. I'm going to throw an event. So that's what I'm doing. Next year, I am hosting the biggest family reunion in history. You are all invited. I'm very serious about this. It's at a great venue called the New York Hall of Science, which is on the grounds of the World's Fair. And it is where the Makers Fair takes place. And I see it as a family reunion meets a World's Fair. So there's going to be food and exhibits and music, and there will be speeches from fascinating cousins, including my cousin George Church has already committed. He has some Ashkenazi Jew in him, so he estimates that at most our most recent common ancestor is 200 generations. So, but probably closer. There's going to be, as I say, music. There's another Harvard professor named Cass Sunstein will be talking. He's a brilliant legal scholar and actually a second cousin, so a real cousin, talking about the legal aspects of family. On the other side of the political spectrum, we've got my cousins George H.W. and Barbara Bush, who I went down to visit last week. I had spoken at one of their literacy charity functions, so I knew them a little, and I found the link, so they agreed to participate. And of course, you. I want all of you to come. I want all 7 billion members of the human family. It might get a little tight, but those who have a confirmed link to me will get a bracelet and be part of this biggest World's Family photo. Morgan Spurlock, who did Super Size Me, where he ate all the McDonald's, he's making a movie out of it. So I'm quite serious. I would love to have you there. And if you go to, as Misha said, no shame among the PGP participants. If you go to globalfamilyreunion.org or just email me at aj@ajjacobs.com, and give me your grandparents, and if you have any DNA information, I'll take that, I'll take whatever you got, and we'll find a link. And the reunion, it could be a disaster, it could be horrible, you know, brawls breaking out everywhere. And but I've already had a great time contacting these cousins. You know, like, you know, some are skeptical. They say, "Is this a scam?" Like I thought. Some have very good questions. One said, "You know, bananas share 50% of our DNA, so are they invited?" And I say, "Absolutely, absolutely. There will be bananas." And by the way, I talked to George Church about that, and he said an asterisk on the 50%, and that's an estimate that may or may not pan out. But they do share some of our DNA. And many have asked to stay at my apartment. You know, I'm happy to have some. I don't know if I can fit all. But I'm very excited about it, and it's going to be for a good cause. I've paired with something called the Cure Alzheimer's Fund, which is here in Boston, looking for a cure for Alzheimer's. And because I'm making it into a benefit, it'll be free, but corporations, I hope, will sponsor some of it. And you know, any money will go to Alzheimer's, because that is in the human family. 40 million people in the human family suffer from Alzheimer's, and that's just going to skyrocket. So anyway, I'm very excited. It's a fascinating time in the history of family, because it's changing faster than ever. You got gay marriage, open adoption, and you've got sperm donorship, and some of my conservative cousins find this a little disturbing. I happen to think it's very good. I'm all for a more inclusive idea of family. And as my 8th cousin, twice removed, Hillary Clinton, said, it takes a village. So I'm totally serious when I say I would love for you to come, cousin to cousin. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So,
What's the date?
Oh, thank you for asking, Esther. It is June 6th, 2015. So please put it on your schedule. June 6th.
Another question, and I come from France if Gwyneth is coming. Is Gwyneth coming?
I have not heard her RSVP yet, but we will. We will have.
Information from Gwyneth, and you get a
Okay, all right. It's on my list of to-do things. Yeah.
you mentioned a lot of genealogy is from what the family tree says, what grandma said. Do you think we'll be ever at the point where somebody looks at your whole genome and Judge Judy's whole genome and says, yes, she is his 11th cousin 4 times removed?
Well, that's a great question. I am PhD deficient, so I am probably the least educated person here in terms of science. So George would probably be able to answer that better. I would think so, because I am very optimistic about science, but you guys would know.
You found the connection of Judge Judy through 23andMe, is that right?
That one was actually through Wikitree, but it is
Oh,
a
okay.
blood relation. It is a blood relation
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah, they'll be confirmed at some point, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yes. is the
Other
answer.
questions here? Wait for the mic.
So one just comment to someone who's done a lot of genealogy, mainly on my wife's side, because I am 100% Ashkenazi Jew, and everything ends at about 1880 for us because they burned everything down.
Right.
That my experience has been that rather than improving the quality, a lot of this crowdsourced genealogy just repeats the lies. But there's a lot of wishful thinking, and because everyone just copies everyone else's GenCom files,
Right.
the oh yes, he's my cousin because I had the same name and were born within 5 years of each other just gets repeated forever and ever and ever. And especially when you get to these very large data sets, nobody is ever going to quality control everything.
Right.
And the other comment I had is I'm also very curious about the if whole genome is going to improve things, because I know that according to 23andMe, half of Eastern Europe is my second cousin because the Ashkenazi gene pool is so tight that there's just people who I know are nowhere near a first or second cousin to me get flagged as it.
Right. Well, I actually think the Ashkenazi Jews interbred so much that I think it's about 7th cousins is what they say is the most distant Ashkenazi Jew. And yeah, the accuracy it's an issue. I happen to be very optimistic. You know, there's sort of the mythical part of the tree where they go back to the Bible, but I think up to and it depends on your family, but up to about 5 generations. I feel very confident in my family up to about 7 generations. And after that, I think it's all, just smoke and mirrors. But again, when Wikipedia started, everyone was like, oh my God, it's going to be, such a joke. It's going to be so filled with errors. And it still is, but I think it's much better than anyone ever expected. And I do think that this model might work the same.
So thank you very much. With that, a round of applause for AJ. That was great.
Thank you.